I've often reflected on the incredible value of learning. From birth till we die, it's very difficult for me to think of anything that we do that we didn't first have to learn, that we didn't have to engage in the learning process, from crawling, learning how to walk, all the way to the scholarly activities that we engage in that led us to exploration of the moon. Learning is involved. Learning is essential. Learning is absolutely vital. And education makes that happen.
When I think about the partnership between kids and parents and a school, and what I think about in that light is, are we building a foundation that will sustain itself, that will stand the test of time? It's what are the foundational elements of what we all want for our children when they graduate? When they graduate high school and leave our home and go out and are in a much broader set than where they are in Hilton Head, does the foundation crack? Is the foundation on solid ground? And yes, I'm talking about not shifting sand, a relationship with Christ, but I'm also talking about the ability to learn, the desire to learn. That passion needs to be the foundation off of which, when they leave, they're ready to apply. That, to me, is what any good partnership between a school and a family does, is they focus on a foundation that will sustain itself regardless of what happens.
We're a family at the school, and it's about working with the students that God's given us, partnering with their families and giving them the best opportunity to understand who they are, understand how uniquely created and gifted they are, and learn to use those gifts to go out and have an impact on the world.
Well, it's a very personal thing for me, candidly. I think we underestimate children all the time. And I think we do so at our own peril and their peril. The reality of it is that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years of age, these kids are ready and are fired up and are ready to learn and have ideas on what they're most engaged with. But we somehow dismiss that. It's actually very biblical. Don't allow someone to look down on you just because you are young.
What we try to do at Christian Academy here is we're just trying to encourage our kids to pursue their passion, to pursue the path, and hopefully the path that God has for them, the one that they're discovering, hopefully they come together and just trying to prepare them for their future.
We all know, we all see our own children when they get fired up. I have 3 very different kids. They're fired up about different things. We all see it in their eyes. We all know when something triggers that passion. Why wouldn't you build a system that makes that occur a lot more often, like every day, rather than once in a while? The whole education system was built for 50, 60 years, has been the same structure. You look at classrooms from 1950, 1960 back. They look a lot like they look today. And the reality of it is that's not the way the kids engage with the world today.
We're in this time period where things are happening so fast, and the kids have to be so nimble and so flip back and forth and learn how to navigate so quickly.
They go grab information when they want it, the way they want it, how they want it. So if you don't build a model that taps into that creativity and the way they engage with the world outside of school, then naturally what you've got is a bunch of bored, unmotivated students. These kids learn how to teach themselves in today's world so much more than I did. So why wouldn't you create a structure that capitalizes on that desire? It's actually fairly simple to me.
I think when we move to Bluffton and open this new campus, I think we are going to be changing the face of education in the Low Country. I don't think people quite understand that how different this school is going to be. Not just from the architecture, the interior floor plans, but from the entire educational process.
this is a unique project unlike any other. This is not just a building of a new campus. This is not just a transitioning from one location to another. This is not just going through the pattern that many, many schools have before. What this is a unique educational transition that will have a lasting impact.
What's most tangible to people is going to be, wow, the school used to be here, and now it's here. And the reality of it is that the vision for this program is so much broader than that. But it's not something people can necessarily initially grasp. And it takes a deeper understanding of this is really a totally different way to educate your child than the way we've been doing it up until now.
Well, at Hilton Head Christian Academy, we feel that if we are designing something for the next 20, 30 years, we need to be definitely looking ahead and not looking behind. And maybe even going into territory that might seem uncomfortable at first, but really is what our children really need.
Our designs really free kids to be more successful. It's all about understanding, teaching, learning, and the spaces that support that.
So, for example, we've already started thinking in terms of the design. And so the campus will actually be a series of buildings as opposed to one big building.
Rather than a fear about hanging on to doing things the way they're doing with what we call bells and cells, a series of cell-like classrooms and corridors, the school has been very open to saying, how can we do better? In fact, how can we be a global exemplar? How can we change and grow and really support our kids for the future rather than design for what we're comfortable with now?
And so there'll be separate buildings for the early years, for the middle and upper school, as well as some common facilities. And the idea is that these should be age appropriate, but at the same time you still have a feeling of one campus.
Really focused on the Christian Academy to those wonderful connections to the outside. So we've designed the spaces in between the buildings with the same intentions as the spaces inside. So the angles between the buildings often frame views to the landscape and to other buildings. And so the environment that we're in, if we feel a sense of trust, of connectedness, that's the best way for us to learn. We come alive, all of us.
So we are now at the Academy of the Holy Names in Tampa, a 100-year-old school that decided to change its education model. This used to be a school that had typical classrooms and corridors, and this building, in fact, was designed in that manner. And as you can see, it's been completely transformed. So while Hilton Head Christian Academy may not look exactly like this, it's an example of what can happen with a Christian school when they decide to push the boundaries of innovation. Okay, you can see this is a very technology-rich environment, but at the same time it's a very social place where students can work independently, they can work in small groups, they can work in fairly large groups, and the teacher circulates around the room giving assistance as needed.
It's working beautifully for our kids. First of all, they love the space. And the teachers have embraced it as well.
It's a sense of pride in what they're doing. And I feel like it kind of takes, especially in the middle school age, it kind of takes away that us versus them. We work together. And being a mentor rather than an authority figure, I think that it's a much more comfortable atmosphere so that the kids can take risks and not feel like they're going to fail. We're there to support them the whole way. We're there to make the mistakes with them, to show them that that's okay because we're trying something new.
If you look at research on the brain, if there are just a few really critical things about learning, one is to feel safe, another is to have a stimulus-rich environment.
So if you look behind me, you see what might look like a library, but really what it is it's decentralized. It's not a central library in the traditional sense, so students can come, they can get access to these resources, but it's also a common space.
Complementary kinds of acoustical treatments, complementary kinds of lighting makes it more stimulus rich, and thus that's the why that we do that to improve learning.
Now, traditionally people might think in a space like this there'd be a lot of noise and distraction, but you can see a lot of acoustic treatments. So even though we don't have walls, you can have different groups of students, some here in the more casual area, and then there's what we call the cave space where students can sit in a campfire type arrangement, and then we have and a whole other section on the other end. So you can have 2 or 3 teachers here at the same time, and there's no acoustic problem because for the most part, students are doing the work. Teachers aren't lecturing. So now we have a series of learning studios with a central common space that students can break out into, so that when they are again moving from a direct instruction model, which happens in the sort of classroom type space, to a student-directed model, then all of these doors can open up. The key is that once the direct instruction is over in that space, the students can spill out into this common space. And in the common space, you can see some high chairs and as well as low tables. The reason is at the high chairs, teachers can actually just stand next to a student and give them help as needed and then move on.
We have a digital media commons. It's a bit more connection to the rest of the world and technology. A teacher collaboration room, which is right open to the learning commons with a learning porch here and a learning porch here. And now we've added this active critique suite and makerspace and STEM focus, which is really getting at that complex problem solving and that cycle of creating in a prototyping lab, for example, in a makerspace, critiquing, and also the research involved in a digital media space.
So if you look at this space here to my right, this is the teacher workroom, and what we do is we give teachers a professional place to work from, and so rather than owning their own classrooms, they own the whole learning community, and then they have their own professional workspace. And the great thing with this is that teachers now get to work with each other, so they can design interdisciplinary courses, for example, which they might not have been able to do had they been trapped in their own classrooms.
So when we started out, we were really afraid that the kids would not be able to work in an open environment. We were worried about the kids that feel like they get distracted easily. We were worried about kids that just could not stay on task, that didn't have the self-control to stay on task. And what we have found was the more we pulled back, the more they came together. We have just been, every single day, just thrilled. We walk through here and I walk in and my lights turn on by themselves, and every morning I just feel that wah, because I walk into my lab and it's just such a different feeling, and the kids are really, really rising to the occasion.
The places that students occupy tells a lot about what we think education should be all about. And so what we try to do is to sort of walk the walk and not just talk the talk. Tell students that we care about them and give them spaces that actually show them that we care about them, as opposed to sticking them in classrooms and then telling them we care about them.
There are many, many differentiating factors that these colleges are going to look for.
Reading, writing, arithmetic, everyone's pretty familiar with that. And that's kind of a 20th century exercise. If you combine that with critical thinking, creativity, communication skills, collaboration, and then I'll throw in another one, a Christian-centric environment, the combination of the two are very powerful.
Our kids will have something different than what we had, and it will differentiate them from a lot of other kids in the low country area.
The tip of the iceberg of the new campus is only going to offer better resources, better tools, better experiences for these folks to not only find out what their personal passion is, but to go to any school within the Carolinas, but beyond.
But really the biggest factor and the biggest opportunity to me is to create these lifelong learners for the next generation. You know, at the end of the day, it's really all about the kids, and it's all about building God's kingdom. This is a big, grand vision that we have, and no vision that God gives is a small vision.
And I feel like that Christian Academy is creating something that's so unique that it's worth the investment. And we're investing in our children's future. So I don't know how you can put a monetary number on that.
We know this is a grand vision, and we know that it's only going to happen when we all come together and we work through this, we provide, we give sacrificially out of our hearts, and I know we can make this happen.
One thing that will always stay the same is that the foundation of the school, to know Christ and to let Him be known, will never change. And that's the most important part, to know that, you know, we're sending our kids to Christian Academy now, and 10 years from now, that will be the most important part.
Look, I'm 55 years of age. In my life, I get very reflective about when I can be part of something that's bigger than myself. and when I can actually, in some small way, contribute to a legacy. For me, my passion has always been, yes, my relationship with the Lord, my wife, and my own children. I've also done a lot of work with youth groups, and to me, is there anything better? Is there anything better than feeling as though you have had an impact on the life of a child? In two ways, one of which is eternal. This is a school that's about eternity. It's not about next Tuesday. It's not about 5 years from now. This is about changing lives forever. And then secondly, we have to prepare children for the world in which they live. We prepare them for eternity, and we prepare them for the world in which they live. To me, the beautiful thing about what we're talking about now is that we're going to do and, not or. So they're not only totally introduced to and reinforced a relationship with Jesus Christ, but they are prepared better than anybody to engage the world in the way the world is. That, to me, at this age in my life, if I'm going to be part of something, I'd like to be part of that.